After the sad loss of his adoptive grandfather, young Goku lived completely alone deep in the mountains. There, amidst nature and silence, he kept his only treasure, a 4-star Dragon Ball, an unforgettable memento of the man who taught him to be noble and strong. One day, as the sun gently set among the trees, Goku returned to his humble home after chopping wood. Upon entering, he noticed something extraordinary. His Dragon Ball was glowing with a soft, almost mystical light. With his heart pounding, he thought for a moment that perhaps his grandfather was trying to communicate from beyond. Driven by hunger and routine, he went fishing and was dragging a huge fish through the forest when suddenly, an unfamiliar noise startled him. A strange vehicle rammed into him without warning. Goku, who had never seen a car, mistook it for a monster and, in a defensive instinct, lifted it and threw it far away. From that contraption emerged a human girl, Bulma, as surprised as he was, who didn't hesitate to pull out a gun. She shot at him, but for Goku, the bullets were mere tickles. After explanations, Bulma and Goku's paths crossed. She convinced him she wasn't a threat, and he, remembering his grandfather's teachings about politeness toward girls, invited her to his home. It was then that Bulma saw the 4-star Dragon Ball. Fascinated, she told Goku the legend of the 7 Dragon Balls and the Dragon God Shenlong, capable of granting a wish to whoever gathered them all. Though Goku was reluctant to part with his grandfather's last keepsake, Bulma persuaded him to join her on her journey to find them all. And so began a unique adventure, marked by discoveries, misunderstandings, and unexpected feats. At one point, a flying dinosaur, a pteranodon, appeared and captured Bulma. Goku, not fully understanding what was happening, thought it was his friend and let himself be tied to a tree. But upon realizing the truth, he didn't hesitate. He hopped on the motorcycle, soared through the air like a bolt of hope, and with his power pole, defeated the creature, rescuing his new companion. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, Goku and Bulma rode the motorcycle toward their next stop. But Goku's rumbling stomach halted the journey, so they decided to camp. Bulma, ever practical, pulled a capsule from her bag and boom, a fully equipped house appeared in the middle of the forest. To Goku, it was witchcraft, and he stared at Bulma with wide, wary eyes. Inside, Goku marveled like a child at the electric lights, as if gazing at fire trapped in glass. Bulma giggled sweetly at his awe as he discovered other wonders, like a magical box that showed moving images, the television. Seeing how dirty he was from mountain life, Bulma told him to bathe. But Goku had no clue what that meant, so she ended up helping him. In the process, she discovered with shock that Goku had a tail, and it was real. Hours later, while Bulma was bathing, Goku innocently entered to return the favor. Horrified and blushing, Bulma screamed and kicked him out, explaining that such things weren't done. It was a clash between innocence and the customs of two opposite worlds. Meanwhile, in another corner, the villainous Pilaf berated his henchmen, Shu and Mai, for failing to retrieve a Dragon Ball. Threats, torture, and a new glimmer of hope led them to Rugadani Valley, where a mysterious light glowed in the night. Back at camp, Goku decided to hunt. Bulma's food wasn't his style. In the forest, he stumbled upon Shu and Mai searching for Dragon Balls, but before any confrontation, a pack of wolves surrounded them. For Goku, it was a fun challenge. He defeated them effortlessly. Mistaking Mai's ship for a giant bird, he took it down with a masterful kick, only realizing his mistake with a mischievous laugh. Returning, Goku shared a rather wild dinner, wolf and centipede, and before bed, he confided something deep to Bulma. His parents had abandoned him in the forest, and his grandfather had taken him in. A sad truth wrapped in the tenderness of his innocence. Later, feeling calm, Goku went out to train, lifting massive rocks with ease. But as he heaved an especially heavy one, he heard a voice. It was a sea turtle. She was lost and needed to return to the ocean. With his big heart, Goku didn't hesitate. Though Bulma initially refused to help, she changed her mind, remembering Goku still carried the coveted 4-star Dragon Ball. And so, together once more, they set off on a new leg of their adventure. Goku, Bulma, and the sea turtle were heading toward the sea, with the sun shining overhead and the promise of new surprises along the way. But just when the journey seemed peaceful, a thief bear, quite literally, blocked their path, intent on devouring the turtle. Without a second thought, Goku stood in front of it, with childlike bravery and a confident smile. Using his unique fighting technique rock, paper, scissors, he defeated the bear with little effort. Finally, they reached the coast. The turtle, thrilled to have returned safe and sound, dove into the water, but not for long. Minutes later, it returned with its master, Censored, the legendary old man of the island. As a token of gratitude, he gifted Goku the flying nimbus, a magical cloud that can only be ridden by those with a pure heart. Goku, unbeknownst to himself, was one of those few. Bulma, noticing that the old man was wearing a 3-star Dragon Ball around his neck, asked him to give it to her. Censored agreed, but in exchange for a small favor, he wanted to see her panties. Bulma, somewhat embarrassed, agreed to get the Dragon Ball. However, unbeknownst to her, the previous night, Goku had removed them out of childish curiosity, so the outcome was far more embarrassing than anyone expected. Meanwhile, Pilaf and his bumbling allies arrived at Kame House with the intention of seizing the Dragon Ball. There, they encountered a peculiar crocodile with glasses, a friend of Censored, whom they interrogated without success. Just in time, the old master returned and bluntly told them he had already given the Dragon Ball to Bulma. Pilaf and his crew decided to flee in their submarine, asking Censored for help to launch it, but the wise man, with a subtle prank, broke it without them noticing. The day ended with the duo approaching a completely deserted village. Upon arriving, Aru village seemed deserted. The silence was unsettling. Goku, ever straightforward, knocked on the door of one of the houses, but when no one answered, he didn't hesitate to break it down. Inside, a wary old man named Sherman Priest greeted him with an axe to the head, mistaking him for someone named Wulong. It hurt Goku, of course, but his heart was noble, and upon learning it was a mistake, he forgave the old man without holding a grudge. Then Apron appeared, a young girl with a sweet gaze and a cloth in her hands. There, they learned of the fear gripping the village. Wulong, an evil shape-shifting creature, was kidnapping the prettiest girls, and Apron was his next target. When the outsiders asked about the Dragon Ball, an elderly woman slowly approached, holding one in her hand, the 6-star Dragon Ball. It was an ancestral relic, she said, and she had no intention of giving it to strangers. But in their desperation to stop Wulong, she proposed a deal. If they could defeat him, the Dragon Ball would be theirs. The villagers doubted a kid like Goku could succeed, but they agreed. Thus, the plan began. Bulma, with a touch of mischievous amusement, disguised Goku as Apron to lure the bandit. Goku was far from thrilled with the idea but went along with it. Wulong appeared, transformed into a demon, ready to kidnap the girl. but upon seeing her reaction, he thought he wasn't attractive enough and turned into a handsome heartthrob. Bulma, watching from inside, became smitten and tried to flirt with him, leading to an unexpected and comical scene. Amid the chaos, Goku needed to bathroom use the bathroom, and it was there that Wulong discovered the girl was actually a boy. Furious, he transformed into a bull to scare him, but Goku challenged him fearlessly. Wulong fled cowardly, tricking Goku by saying the bull had escaped into the forest. What Wulong didn't know was that Goku wasn't one to give up easily. So, the shapeshifter turned into a giant robot with hot soup and enormous chopsticks, hoping to intimidate him. But even that failed, he ended up burning himself. He even fell victim to a kid with a rock, forcing him to hide. Provoked by Goku, Wulong challenged him to break 3 bricks with one hand, and Goku pulverized them with a single finger. Stunned and increasingly desperate, Wulong turned into a bat, then a rocket, but his 5-minute transformation limit ran out, and he crashed to the ground. Goku, as always, saved him. Driven by the promise, they reached Wulong's mansion. There, the parents of the kidnapped girls discovered their daughters weren't prisoners but surrounded by luxuries. Wulong wasn't so much a villain as a coward craving attention. The elderly woman, true to her word, handed over the 6th Dragon Ball. As punishment and precaution, Goku and Bulma decided to take Wulong with them, not as an enemy, but as a mandatory companion. Perhaps, in time, his strange powers would prove useful. The search for the Dragon Balls continued, and Goku, Bulma, and a reluctant Wulong were navigating a calm river in a boat lent by fate. Everything seemed peaceful until Bulma mentioned their next destination, the dreaded Diablo Desert. At the mention of the name, Wulong turned white as a sheet. Trembling, he recounted that a ruthless bandit who robbed and killed without mercy roamed that desert. Bulma handed Wulong a candy, claiming it would give him strength. But there was a catch. As they continued their journey, the boat ran out of fuel, and without hesitation, Bulma ordered Wulong to transform into an oar. Resigned, he obeyed. Upon reaching dry land, Goku went to explore while Bulma checked her backpack, and let out a desperate scream. Her travel gear was gone. No capsules, no transportation. They'd have to walk. Wulong, seeing the perfect opportunity, fled. But Bulma, never one to be outdone, pulled her trump card. She shouted the word poop, and as if by magic, Wulong came running back, clutching his stomach in agony. The candy was actually a special pill that forced him to return whenever that word was spoken. The desert greeted them with scorching heat. The sun was so intense that Bulma fainted, forcing the group to stop. In the distance, hidden among the rocks, were Yamcha, a bandit as charismatic as he was feared, and his inseparable companion Pur, a tiny shape-shifting creature. From their hideout, Pur watched through a telescope and alerted his partner, "We've got company." Yamcha introduced himself bluntly, demanding all their capsules and money. But Goku, steadfast as a rock, refused to hand them over. At that moment, Pur recognized Wulong and, with no filter, spilled the truth. They had been classmates at the Southern Transformation Kindergarten, and Wulong had been expelled for harassing girls. Shame fell over the shapeshifter like a heavy cloud, while Yamcha sharpened his gaze. The tension was rising. Lost in the endless dunes of the desert, Goku, Bulma, and Oolong had no choice but to spend the night in the transformable trailer of the little scoundrel. As the daytime heat gave way to the cool night, Bulma went to shower, complaining about the dust in her hair as if the wind itself had declared war on her hairstyle. In the distance, however, danger was approaching. Emperor Pilaf had once again sent his bumbling henchmen, Shu and Mai, on a mission to retrieve the coveted Dragon Balls. Their plan: plant a bomb in the trailer. But Shu, as usual, messed up, and ended up with the explosive stuck to his hand. The operation ended in a forced retreat, accompanied by shouts and stumbles. Not far away, Yamcha and Puar were also lurking, spying from the shadows. Meanwhile, Goku, with the innocence of someone who always speaks the truth, was telling Oolong the legend of the magical spheres. Yamcha, hidden, listened intently. He wanted to obtain them, not for power or wealth, but to confront his greatest fear, women. Bulma came down after her bath, refreshed but unaware of what was coming. Oolong, with a fox-like grin, offered them a relaxing juice, which knocked them out in minutes. Seizing the moment, Yamcha and Puar planned to infiltrate. Meanwhile, Shu and Mai, who hadn't given up, tried to plant their bomb again. Oolong, thinking he was alone with a sleeping Bulma, tried to approach her with ill intentions, but his plan was interrupted when Goku walked through the door. What he didn't know was that this Goku was actually Puar in disguise. Alarmed, Oolong quickly transformed into Bulma to cover his tracks. Both left the trailer, each believing they had fooled the other, until the masks and transformations fell, revealing the most absurd scene: two imposters pretending to be their own friends. Laughter, or shouts, soon followed. Inside the trailer, Yamcha rummaged through the sheets. When he touched what he thought were spheres, he discovered something far more human. To his horror, he uncovered a completely naked Bulma. His scream echoed across the desert. Yamcha fled as if his life depended on it. Embarrassed and sleepless, Oolong stood guard with a rifle in hand. At dawn, Goku and Bulma woke up, oblivious to the night's events. She asked for her clothes, and Oolong, nervously, admitted he couldn't wash them but offered her a spare outfit. Just when they thought the incidents were behind them, Yamcha reappeared with a bazooka and destroyed the trailer. The explosion knocked Bulma unconscious, which, for Yamcha, meant avoiding his phobia. However, Goku, energized by a hearty breakfast, stood up to him again. The fight was brief. With a single precise blow, Goku knocked out one of Yamcha's teeth. Humiliated but impressed, the bandit changed tactics. Feigning kindness, he gifted them a capsule containing a vehicle, secretly planning to follow them and steal the spheres once they were all collected. And as a comedic epilogue, Mai and Shu, convinced their bomb had caused the destruction, entered the wrecked trailer. At that exact moment, their real explosive went off, and the final scene was a cloud of smoke with two villains dazed by their own clumsiness. The journey of Goku, Bulma, and Oolong led them to the legendary Mount Frypan, convinced that the sixth Dragon Ball was there. As they advanced, Oolong recounted the feared legend of King Juma, also known as Ox-Satan, a colossus said to rule with fire and fury. Bulma, skeptical, mocked the story, dismissing it as a mere campfire tale. Elsewhere in the world, the inseparable but clumsy Mai and Shu returned empty-handed to Pilaf's castle. The Emperor, furious at their incompetence, greeted them with an electric shock that shook the castle walls. Back at the blazing mountain, Yamcha and Puar spied from afar, hoping to see Goku fall to the supposed monster. But something unexpected happened first. A girl was fleeing in panic from a dinosaur. Surprisingly, she took it down with a beam shot from her helmet. When Yamcha found her, she mistook him for another attacker and fired another beam, which he narrowly dodged before knocking her out. Unbeknownst to him, Yamcha had just landed himself in bigger trouble. At that moment, Bulma and Oolong reached Oxaten's territory. The gigantic king, wary, assumed they were there to steal his treasure. With quick words, they nearly convinced him of their innocence, until Goku suddenly appeared, bluntly stating he hadn't found anything valuable. Enraged, Oxaten unleashed his fury. But Goku, undaunted, faced him, though his attack seemed ineffective. Then, riding his flying Nimbus and wielding his power pole, he began circling the giant. Upon seeing Goku on the Nimbus, Oxaten realized the truth. This boy was no ordinary kid. He was the grandson of Son Gohan, the top disciple of the legendary Kame Sennin. Oxaten himself had been the second best disciple. The tension dissolved into respect. Moved, Oxaten asked Goku for help. He needed to find Kame Sennin and convince him to extinguish the fire consuming his mountain. He also asked that, if Goku found his missing daughter, he'd bring her back. That daughter turned out to be the same girl Yamcha had knocked out moments earlier. Horrified by the coincidence, Yamcha hurriedly sought out the girl, named Chi-Chi. Feigning kindness, he apologized and even claimed to be in love with her, trying to salvage his image. Then he fled when he saw Goku approaching on his Nimbus. Upon finding her, Goku was surprised that Chi-Chi could ride the flying Nimbus, a sign of her pure heart. Curious, she tugged on Goku's tail, unaware it was his weak point. Slightly embarrassed, Goku asked her not to do it again, while Yamcha, listening from afar, took note of this detail. With their mission clear and hearts resolute, Goku and Chi-Chi set off for the distant island of Master Kame Sennin, unaware that many more adventures were already burning on the horizon.